My name is Danyacho Teshome. I'm an Ethiopian American, a 44 years resident of the great city of Los Angeles, California. My fellow Americans, I'm sending this message to you from northern Ethiopia, from a tiny, grief-stricken town called Maikadra. I'm saddened to say that I'm standing inside a cemetery in which over 1,000 Amhara were massacred between November 9 and 10, 2020 by the TPLF were buried. I'm further saddened because I have decided that this cemetery will be my burial ground as well. Although I would have preferred for my final place of rest to have been the city I call home, where I married my wife, where my 3 sons were born and raised, Culver City, California. The reason for my decision that my final resting place will be here in Welkiet, particularly in Maikadra, is because a massive existential battle for the survival of Ethiopia as a nation. A battle for the survival, honor, and dignity of the Ethiopian people will take place here very shortly, courtesy of the Biden administration's ill-omened, diabolical decision to support the TPLF, a terrorist organization, in its attempt to once again control Welkiet, Tagadet, Tallamt, and Humera and resume the unprecedented crime against humanity and the systematic annihilation of the Amhara people from their ancestral land of Welkiet. I have personally witnessed the suffering of the people of Welkiet over the last 40 years. I'm a living witness of the violent, bloody, forceful displacement of Welkiet residents and their dispersion all over the world as the TPLF commenced upon its massive project of changing the demography by undertaking the most brutal ethnic cleansing campaign of modern history. I have first-hand knowledge of numerous Welkiet residents, some as young as 13 years old, forced to flee to Libya and were auctioned off as slaves in modern-day slave markets in Libya. In 2017, CNN reported the chilling, satanic practice of modern-day slavery in Libya. This shocked the world. 2 years earlier, in 2015, at the peak of the slave trade, we hired a Libyan American gentleman and sent him to Libya to save as many Welkiet residents as possible from being sold off as slaves to Arab farmers. This was a project I personally managed, and it's a matter of record. Although the world, including the so-called human rights organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, ignored the cry of agony of the Amhara people displaced from Welkiet, we tried to do all we can to document the atrocities and help the victims. The silent genocide TPLF perpetrated on the Amhara of Welkiet and Tagadet is a story of erasure of the physical existence and cultural identity of the Amhara people and their replacement by the overbearingly arrogant Tigrayan ultra-nationalists whose ideology is informed by the diabolical social Darwinist thought process that underpins fascism. Social Darwinism motivated the Nazis to do what they did in Europe and the TPLF in Welkiet Tagadet to Amharas. Human rights groups like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, etc. turned a deaf ear to the cry of the Amhara when horrendous atrocities were perpetrated against the Amhara people of Welkiet by the TPLF. The concerted effort made by USA and its allies to portray the TPLF and its Tigrayan supporters as victims of genocide and depict the real victims of genocide, the Amhara people of Welkiet, can only fuel a war whose ramification will destabilize the whole Horn of Africa region. This war will prove to be the most devastating, the bloodiest war the Horn of Africa has ever experienced. It is heartbreaking to see human rights organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch turn into paid agents for a rogue terrorist organization, the TPLF. Billions of dollars looted from the government of Ethiopia by the TPLF over the last 27 years is now being used to pay off members of Congress and employees of Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch that have shamefully traded their conscience for blood-stained dollars, for campaign contributions, and from lobbyists. This is a sad day for the world, a sad day indeed, a day when we witnessed the oldest rights organizations turn into advocacy for sale institutions devoid of any form of ethical standard. I urge the government of Ethiopia to expel despicable peddlers of advocacy for sale, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, out of the country and deny their staff and paid agents entry into the country. The rightful ownership of Welkiet, Tagarit, Allamt, and Humara is not a matter of history. It is simply current affairs. In my lifetime and for millennia, Welkiet, Tagarit, Allamt, and Humara have always been part of Gondar. This has been attested by even the founder of TPLF, members of the Tigrayan royal family, Ethiopian, European, and even Tigrayan historians. Welkiet, Tagarit, Allamt, and Humara have always been part of Gondar, and they will continue to be part of Gondar. No amount of international coercion will change this. Unfortunately, the Biden administration has chosen to stand on the wrong side of history. Following the treacherous attack of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces by the Tigrayan People Liberation Front, TPLF, in the wee hours of the night, which Ethiopians and African nations refer to as Ethiopia's 9/11, in a shocking and unprecedented manner, the Biden administration, instead of condemning this cowardly act, started its covert and not so covert support of the TPLF and undermining the stability of Ethiopia by issuing patently false and misleading information. They even went as far as disseminating fabricated information as warning to the international community regarding the imminent fall of the capital city to the TPLF forces, quote unquote, within days. The Biden administration did not stop there. They went as far as issuing terrifying statements, supposedly from the Federal Aviation Authority, claiming that Ethiopian Airlines will be stricken by surface-to-air missiles. This was done intentionally to create diplomatic stampede and immobilize the economy of the country. The totality of the Biden administration's astounding support of TPLF, a terrorist organization, has led the majority of Ethiopians to believe that President Biden and his State Department had prior knowledge of the attack against the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, and that they may even have provided intelligence information to the TPLF so that their attack would be successful. This is a belief widely held by overwhelming majority of Ethiopians and has created palpable sense of enmity. As an American, this worries me infinitely, as I hate to see Americans, the kindest, most compassionate people by far, being perceived as the drivers of ethnic strife, responsible for the ensuing bloodshed in Africa because of the ill-advised policy of US politicians, some motivated by lobbyists and campaign dollars. Judging from the momentum that the No More movement has gathered over the last 9 months around the world, particularly in Africa, it's very apparent that the animosity towards the United States that has developed because of the Biden administration's foreign policy supporting TPLF, an ethnic dictatorship which has presented a massive existential threat against Ethiopia, is fast spreading throughout Africa and beyond. I appeal to my fellow Americans to help stop this anti-American action by some members of Congress motivated by lobbyists and campaign dollars. It is in the American tradition of rejecting evil and injustice no matter the source that I declare unequivocally my stand against President Biden administration's practice of foreign policy that is motivated by huge campaign contribution dollars and lobbyists. It's in the American tradition of laying one's life for a just cause that I'm here today vowing to lay my life to protect the residents of Welkiet against any attempt to occupy this sacred land of Welkiet by the TPLF and its supporters. I promise with my honor that my lifeless body will be among the first few that the invader will have to step over in his attempt to occupy the land of Welkiet, the ancestral land of the Amhara. But it will not be the last. Millions of Ethiopians are ready to kill and die for the right of the people of Welkiet to live and thrive in their ancestral land. ዳኛቸው ተሾመ, ማይካድራ፣ ወልቃይት in northern Ethiopia.